will support curiosity. And in that curiosity, support that it's okay to be in discomfort, to heal, and say their truth for that day. It touched me so deeply to my soul. Do not let your current employment define you. You are so much more, but also some of the most amazing, wise, compassionate.
Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome back to the Long-Term Podcast. I'm your host, Advin Villa. Today, we have yoga and mindfulness teacher. She is the founder of Ashtanga Yoga Montreal from 2000 to 2018. Currently, she is pursuing her master's in educational psychology, and she still continues to teach yoga, mindfulness, and movement. Allison Ulan. We will discuss her journey in life, dance, mindfulness, and what it means to be authentic in life and how to connect with others and a lot of other deep stuff. Allison has been of great value to this world, and I'm extremely thankful for all of what she had to share today. She is a wonderful person with a beautiful soul. Thank you, Dr. Wong, for introducing us. Everybody, welcome. All right, welcome to the Long-Term Podcast, Allison.
Oh, it's so good to be here, Advin. And I'm so impressed by your setup.
Thank you. Thank
and
you.
This just, congratulations for doing this.
Thank you. Yeah, shout out to Dr. Wong for introducing us. Yeah, that's great. Very serendipitous and just, yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about your journey?
So we've met at the University of Alberta, and currently I'm at the University of Alberta to do something I've wanted to do for the past 10, 15 years, which is to do a master's in psychology. So where did this start? So I grew up in Edmonton, and my sanctuary as a child was two things. It was walking in the woods, because where I grew up, the ravine wasn't far. And that truly has been my sanctuary for my whole life, is that connection to the woods, nature, wind, the sky, water, all of that. My other sanctuary in my life was dance. And since the age of 4 or 5, I guess I was teaching people how to dance in my family's living room. And I got into dance, very, diligent, ballet and tap. And then I got into a ballet company called Ballet North here in Edmonton. And in that first year, I was hit by a car. And it was
old were you?
I was 18.
Oh, wow.
And I was on my way home from working. I was, as many dance theater artists know, you usually can't make enough money from whatever company you're in. It's very rare. And so I was working at a cafe, and I was coming home on my bike, and it was behind the Garneau Theater. It's usually the way I passed so that I could get onto the 109th Bridge to go home for my friends who all live here in Edmonton. Go to YouTube, figure it out. Anyways. And as I was passing through, a sports car zipped around the corner and hit me direct on. It kind of in a strange way. Thank you for hitting me so fast, because if it had been slower, I probably wouldn't be here. I probably would have turned my bike and slid underneath the wheels. And it hit me straight on, and I flipped over the car, onto the car and off. And in my adrenaline rush, I remember picking up the bike and throwing it at the car.
Oh, yeah, you still got it. Yeah.
Poor guys. They jumped out. They were teenagers or, probably university students. And what I remember, it was a red sports car. to be honest. That might not be true. But they were drunk. And they handed me like $200, $250. And I remember going to the high-level diner right after and calling an ambulance to just come and check me. And then they dropped me off at home. So I had a cracked mandibular joint that nobody could help me because of how it was cracked right in the joint, and a lot of soft tissue damage on my left side. And I do remember going to class the next day and being in a lot of pain. Nobody here in Edmonton could help me at that time. They just said I'd have to live with pain. But my sister, she gave me her yoga mat and she said, go to Joseph Rampel's yoga class. And those were my first classes in Iyengar yoga, which was the beginning of what changed my life.
And so if this didn't occur, then you wouldn't have started this yoga journey. Wow. So how did it help you with the healing process? Because it must have been when you get hit by a car, when something out of the ordinary happens, you get into this, why me, right? And certainly nobody could help you at that time. And yoga as a practice, especially back then, it wasn't known. Now, right now it's preached and a lot of people engage in activity and everybody preaches the health benefits. But back then it was still in that gray area, even dark. Yeah.
Well, so, yeah, it was like hippies went there. People who wore Birkenstocks. It was definitely outliers who usually practiced yoga. But the amazing thing about being here in Edmonton is actually one of the strongest Iyengar practitioners in Canada. Like a great, amazing community of practitioners. And it's still where a lot of people come to finish their intermediate senior level of Iyengar yoga. So I actually feel incredibly lucky for meeting Joseph Rampel. I don't know where he is now. Joseph, if you're out there, thank you. But, within the first class, he had us doing handstands against a wall, which I was this skinny ballet dancer, and it rocked my world. But something in it resonated for me. And then through this practice of learning yoga as I was dancing in this ballet company, it started to make me realize that ballet wasn't really feeding my soul. And I started to, through this ballet company, meet somebody, Andrea, I want to say Smith. This could be wrong. We have to fact check this. But she was the founder of Mile Zero Dance. And she was like, yeah, you actually can do contemporary dance. And it was through her and then going to the Banff School of Fine Arts one summer that I was given the opportunity to apply for the Juilliard School in New York City. And I went out there, and I have a ridiculous story about that. It was right when the Olympics was happening. And I get to Toronto thinking the auditions would be there because that's what had been communicated to me. But then I looked through all my stuff and they hadn't sent me a place. So I called the Juilliard School in New York City and they go, oh, we canceled the auditions in Toronto. Oh, and I was like, I flew across the country. And it was quite clear they had no idea what was going on that level. And they said, can you get to New York City? We'll fit you in. Thank goodness, a good family friend was a travel agent. She got me a bus and then a flight. And I had friends in New York City, or New Jersey, actually, that I could stay with. Got to New York City, got to the Juilliard School for the audition, was actually quite shocked by how big it was, got into the audition, but my flight back to Edmonton was actually that evening. And I had to, it was something like 3 p.m, and my flight was at 7 or 6 or something. And so at the beginning of the audition, I say my name, where I'm from. And I'm like, you know where the Olympics are right now? Because they were happening right at that time. I said, I live 3 hours north of that. And they all just kind of went, oh, and then started laughing. I said, I have a flight at this time. Is there some way I can shorten this audition so I can make sure I get my flight home? And they all started laughing, but it happened. Okay. They just shortened it for me and had me do my thing. And it did quite make an impression because they're like, how could we not remember somebody who seems like they came from the far north to take an audition with us?
Yeah.
But it was through my time in New York City where I studied with Mary Dunn, who set up the Iyengar studios there, with Sharon Guénon, who set up Jiva Mukti studios. And that's where I studied Ashtanga Yoga, that I started to understand through sensory awareness and sensory flow, basically mindfulness, I could actually heal my body. And I could let go of deep-seated tension from this car accident. It took time. I'm not saying it happened right away. It took a lot of understanding my personal holding patterns and reactions. I'm incredibly grateful to these women and all the other teachers along the way. But healing is possible. It's just maybe what we think our healing is actually isn't that. It'll be something else along the way.
My dad had carpal tunnel, and he went to the doctors and they said, yeah, there's nothing they can do. You just have to go to physio, and he didn't really find it effective. But he had this, he applied the same methodology he got when he was he had arthritis. It's in the family. And he kind of just kept strengthening his leg that was affected by it at the time, and it healed. Just every day, he, instead of having this mindset of, oh, only the medical field could help me, he kind of switched it off and focused on just movement and just positive thinking. I don't know, onto the hope side of things. And so he did the same thing with carpal tunnel, and he kind of just squeezed the ball every day, and over time he healed. And I hear stories like these all the time. Onto even think Joseph Dispenza, something like that, some mindfulness teacher, and he talks about the miracles that he has witnessed from people engaging in mindfulness meditation work. And it's fascinating to see these people heal from debilitating, uncurable diseases or ailments to now being able to live their lives normally. Now, from your experience, like how did that come up to be? Did you go to the traditional medical route first?
Well, yeah, I did. I went and I met with surgeons and physiotherapists about what I could do. And they basically said, because of how I had cracked my jaw and that I just live with pain. But I also think that was 1987 here. And because when I moved out east and I met people in all the different places that I lived, so I was in New York City. I was very fortunate. I was awarded a scholarship to study at the Place in London for a year. And I met this amazing Pilates teacher, which I'm sorry, I don't know her name, but she was on staff at the Place, which is a contemporary dance school. And she helped me with understanding the body's mobility, the nature of the body to change, the nervous system on different levels. And I think I've just always been a mindfulness curious person. I do feel my connection to nature and walking in the woods as a child and walking in the woods to this day is part of that curiosity of what's unfolding in the present moment. So when you say about these miracles through mindfulness, I would say it's how it's described in the world of meditation and yoga is actually the wonderment that instead of thinking that we know the body, to be extremely honest that we understand aspects of the body, but there's still lots we do not understand. We don't actually understand what consciousness and what the mind is. We don't. We actually don't understand exactly what neuroplasticity is. Fascia, which 25 years ago was still considered just icky stuff in your body, finally, through the sensitivity of instruments and the curiosity of researchers, has been found to be key in the healing process in the body. And so if you know anything about Thomas Myers, and he teaches about myofascial movement and the nature of myofascia, this is actually the collagen within the body that allows us, first of all, to heal, to track our muscles and bone movement. It's kind of like the flexible grout of our body, so we can move around with both stability and mobility. So I bring this up in that we're still learning about us, and to be in that wonderment of acknowledging what we know and also what we don't know. And that in the world of meditation and yoga, this is actually considered a sign of intelligence.
Yeah, there's all these classes I've been in about cognitive science, and you learn so much every day. And what I've found is the more you know, the less you actually know. Hey, it's kind of that, forget what effect that is, but the people that don't know a lot, they're usually the people that think they know everything, versus the people that are educated, especially if they're specializing in a field, they come to understand that they do not know everything. And while you could describe that, oh, communication is the Broca's area, and then comprehension is the Wernicke's area of the brain, and then what incites us to do certain tasks, oh, it's dopamine, the neurotransmitter for reward. But then the deeper you dig, the more you find out that it's actually immensely complex, and that each new discovery that you find, it's just another question that becomes unraveled. And by letting go of this need to want to know everything, and by just accepting things as is liberating. That, oh, these ailments that do come, and instead of fighting it by just taking a deep breath and trusting yourself and internalizing that you do not know everything, and that you don't need to, because there's millions or trillions of terabytes and you could go your entire life specializing on one topic, you'll never even come close to understanding that topic to the fullest extent. Which is, I resonate with when you also mentioned that by letting go of after that car crash, and the doctor's telling you couldn't do anything, right? You said that mindfulness and meditation had healed you from that. You don't have any more effects from.
Well, I do have, there is a certain limited motion in my neck. I don't know if I should say this is going to be on YouTube, but I had this strange thing happen about 5-6 years ago, where I have certain teeth that were cracked. And I, from what happened and how my jaw probably clenched when I went over the car, I went, oh, I bet I took my impact through these teeth. Well, 2 of these teeth got removed, not right at the same time, but they were cracked vertically, which is a little bit strange. And guess what? My full range of motion returned in my neck after years of not having full range of motion. So I think there's the key with one's personal process with one's body and mind and how the body functions and healing. I think we actually have to be curious about our individuality with that. And not be, okay, it's going to be in a textbook, or some other expert like a doctor or a psychologist is going to tell me what's right for me. can we be curious enough and in the wonderment of this process called this mind body, be willing to try different things that work for us? And this is where I think the mindfulness is the key. It's not that it's not going to be like the Matrix, red pill or blue pill. Do you want to be awake or asleep? It's going to be, can we be in this plethora of choices to figure out, well, what actually works for me? And can I be around people who will support curiosity? And in that curiosity, support that it's okay to be in discomfort to heal. I think what's a tricky thing in the last 40 to 50 years after World War II is we were given this idea by the medical world, directly or indirectly, that we don't ever have to be in pain or discomfort. And it's created a certain sector of people who can't be with the discomfort of growing and healing.
Well, that's with the abundance of opioids, and a lot of people are so quick to jump on eradicating the pain when that is your body's way of telling you something's not right. And to an extent, sure, there are some people that undergo surgery and they need to not feel somebody cutting them open, because that would just be pure torture. But I feel as a society too, we are so quick to eradicate pain. We don't let it flow through our system emotionally as well. We just try to numb it out with video games or a movie. We don't just sit there and kind of sense it and go through it. And what ends up happening too is it becomes intensified. And I'm reading this book called Dopamine Nation too, and the pain and pleasure balance of, if you tip onto the pleasure side of things too much, then it's just going to swing you back to the pain. And what happens is, if the more you run towards the pleasure side of things, the more pain you'll get. And then the more you run towards the pain, the more pleasure you'll get, because it always just equalizes like a seesaw. And you see this with people that get addicted to drugs, is they always just want to tip on pain or on pleasure all the time. And then next thing you know, they swing back to the pain with the withdrawals. And so they always have to keep going and keep going up. And
yeah, because their baseline changes.
Yes.
And it'd be intriguing if we could do research on, I will admit my addiction, it's watching documentaries. I'm not kidding. And I don't need to ever watch another documentary. I have watched probably hundreds in my life.
You just enjoy documentaries?
But yeah, there's something about it. It didn't give, it's a satisfaction. It's a pleasure for me. And it is a task right now in the last couple of years of, no, I'm not going to YouTube and watching another documentary. And I can feel the displeasure in me. I have an addiction to it.
How would you define addiction?
That I feel like it's necessary for me to survive. And I've worked with people addictions.
I know you've worked with...
back in Montreal.
How many years was that?
3 years.
3 years. And what was the main lesson you've learned from working with all these people?
Well, teaching mindfulness and yoga for 3 years in an addiction clinic. First of all, that they and myself, everybody participating in the class, are given permission to let emotions and sensations of the body have time and space. So we live in such a quick world now.
Yeah.
And we live in a world that every moment can be filled with some sort of pleasure.
Yeah.
So, right?
From your phone, just if you want to escape the terrors of what's in front of you, just the discomfort, you numb it out with just TikTok or you don't even have to go to a restaurant or fast food to the drive-through. You can just have it on Skip the Dishes, DoorDash, Uber Eats. And when you want to see a friend, oh no, you could just go on social media and scroll through. You could just message them or play video games. And what that's done to our minds is it's just we're unable to sit with who we are. Instead, we try to numb ourselves by all these vices, and with everything that's coming out, the more it's becoming more and more potent, right? And even we talked about this prior to the pod, and Cabramonte talks about drug addicts don't, it's not like they just captured hedonism and went, okay, I want to maximize pleasure as best as I can. It is more about, I can't face the pain and suffering that's been inflicted to me. And usually it's from childhood trauma or what's been done, just atrocities in human nature. And to escape that, drug addicts go to drugs. And you see this to a lesser extent. Even in me, I used to dabble in that sort of stuff in high school, and because I just never took time to really look within myself and realize just how suppressed everything was and how disconnected I felt with everybody around me. The moment I did, it was painful. I wanted to run away from it. But what I realized is running away from it just kept intensifying the pain, but running towards it and finding a solution within it has definitely propelled me to be a better human being. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's our consumer society, because it's about consumption. It's about getting us addicted to consume something regularly. So it keeps people's profits. So companies, people who make stuff are going to do whatever to sell their stuff. Okay. Instead of complaining about that, I actually think your generation and my generation, so let's say from Generation X and up, understand the necessity to have agency of our own mind and our own attention. Yet these devices have been designed to work on subtle levels, to work with our neurology to hook us. Just the little sounds are designed to mimic a danger in the distance. Like our species, tons of species, incredibly intelligent. You don't wait for a tiger to be jumping on top of you. We're tracking the present moment all the time. They say 10 to 15% of our neurological awareness is just tracking the sounds to see if there's any danger in the far distance. Right? That's why the sounds on our phones are these little beeps. It just triggers our neurology. Okay? Knowing that, that's why we should turn off our phones. So there's not these beeps and bumps. Or maybe we should make different, louder sounds on them for, hey, it's my mom getting in touch with me or my sister. So that we start to make these devices healthy for ourselves. We can have agency with our devices. And actually, if there's anybody out there, please take this idea, run with it. Please. I want to work on psychology and addiction. But if you can figure out how to change these devices to be our forms of agency, go for it.
So with the sounds, you're saying that these sounds capture that survival mechanism that's ingrained in our biology, and by changing the sounds, you can change how we respond to the device.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yep. So we change the device so it doesn't keep triggering us.
Well, there's turning off the notifications or turning off the sounds. And I know my friend goes as far as turning on the gray filter, so he doesn't see any color, so it doesn't look like an entire casino on the phone. I know for many as well, they try to section off times where the phone is accessible only in these parts of the day, instead of going on your phone for no reason, you go on it with conscious thought instead of just in your subconscious or unconscious. You actually go on there to direct message a friend for an upcoming birthday party, or schedule a meeting with a person on the podcast, or a workout, or maybe you guys are getting together. But to do that though requires so much effort and not a lot of people want to put in effort. And
you got it. That's it.
Yeah.
The people selling products that want us to be on those have made it either a default or really easy not to change anything on them.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the key. Where are we going to place our effort? In the world of mindfulness, there's 7 factors of being more mindful in your life. And one of them is effort. That we actually have to put effort into our life to be meaningful, to reflect who we are, and to support how we want to move positively through life and feel our agency. Because what I've learned from working with people with addiction is they've lost their sense of agency. So, like you mentioned, people who have addictions, and I worked with people who had alcoholic and drug addictions. So severe how they affect the neurology and the ability for the prefrontal cortex to be an executor of reason. It usually kind of turns off the prefrontal cortex on some levels. The key for them is to start to see, when we're working with them in whatever format or sessions, that they actually have agency with their emotions. They have agency with the memories that resurface. They have agency with any of the feelings of shame or guilt or sense of lack of intelligence. And it's key for them to be given time and space to find that resolution. So the thing is to slow down or have space in our lives where it's just simply about digesting our experience. Because in that digestion of the experience, we come to find the insight to find resolution. And it takes time. The key with, and I'm not saying all devices are like this or everybody's like this, is that they work on speed and they take away our agency by speeding everything up.
One of my favorite books, it's by this psychiatrist, and he had his brother pass away from suicide, and that caused him to change career paths. And because he was just filled with shame and he didn't know how to go about all these feelings, and he became a psychiatrist and he became an expert on trauma. And in the book, he had talked about people that were happy possessing 2 things: agency and gratitude. And the people that are plagued by all these built up tension of shame, of doubt, of guilt, you had said, aren't giving themselves time to process that. And there's this learned helplessness into it too, right? Have you heard of that term? Where where you try and try again, but then life just keeps knocking you back down, and you try again, and there's just it seems to be no light at the end of the tunnel. And all the things that you have done have come to no fruition, and you just get punished from it over and over. And I could sometimes most of the time when I'm reading these books, because I'm really curious on addiction and kind of the human mind. And while I'm not the smartest person, I am definitely very empathetic when it comes to these stories. And I could see myself being that person had I not had the family and friends and blessed life that I had to. What would you tell someone that has just experienced failure on top of failure, and they don't have a support system? And you had worked with these people, hey, where they don't have anything, and they, in their minds, it's all been a catastrophe.
Well, the first is that they're a whole complex being. And this is what I would always emphasize in my classes with people with addiction is, what are you doing right now well? And they'd be like, what? I'm like, is your perspective big enough and flexible enough to see you're not just your addiction? You're not just your failure. You're not just this thing that you're attached onto or into or by. And that's really the key, is to notice our attachments. And attachments not always what we want and what we find beautiful, like this lovely light or glasses or these beautiful chairs that we're sitting in. Attachment can be, I define myself by my failure. And I think this is so important, is to not stay by ourselves. We are social beings. Get to that support group. Get to whatever that thing is that you can start to be mentored by people who see what you're doing well right now. Simple story, short story. So first year I get to Juilliard. Intriguing classmates. Intriguing, mostly more men in my group than women. And one of my classmates asked me to go to an AA meeting with him. Now, this guy's 18 years old. I'm a little bit older. I'm 20, 21 at that time. And he shares with me that at the age of 14, he became addicted to alcohol. And he overcame it by the age of 16 or 17, but AA was crucial in his life. And he asked if I'd be willing to go with him. So just so you know, in the US, drinking age is 21. Here it's 18. And just, different society. And so I went to the AA meeting with him. It changed my life.
Why is that?
So we sit down, we're all in these chairs looking forward. They were like metal chairs, I believe. And we weren't right at the front. We were kind of back in the middle. And just simply to hear people stand up and say, I'm an addict, and this is what I'm working through that day. Whatever brought them to that day. And hearing one person at a time get up and say their truth for that day. It touched me so deeply to my soul. And I wished everybody on the face of the earth could be in groups like that every day, because it cut through any superficial propping up, any superficial performance we do to try and gain each other's love and support and status. And I remember I stood up and went, my name is Allison. I don't think I'm addicted to anything, but I'm sure I am. And this And I just said my gratitude for what they said and how I was being in a city of concrete that I didn't feel comfortable in at all.
When you feel the honesty and vulnerability and it's palpable,
Yeah.
it's in the air. And because most people who just going about their normal days, we put on this front of, oh, this is the car that I drive. It's nice. And I'm going golfing on the weekend. I'm going to the gym. And it's great. It's just,
I got it together.
Yeah, I got it together. But
I got this solved.
Most people don't. That's what I've found.
Yeah.
Maybe from a different person's lens, that's not the case. But just from talking to people, even being from Sherwood Park, where the kids are well off. I mean, our parents were not as, compared to Edmonton, at least, the kids from Sherwood Park going to university, we are privileged. But what you find is, from just changing my speech pattern and the questions that I ask and just presenting myself without judgment, is vulnerability actually opens people up. It brings the barrier down. And when you went to that AA meeting, that's probably why it's so effective. Is going into it, a lot of people think that vulnerability is something to run away from, that you can't be honest. The truth, that is weakness. That when you tell people that you are broken, that you're addicted, that you do have shame that you carry, it's going to push other people away. But the truth is, it brings you closer to everyone around you.
Yeah.
Because people realize that, that I thought for the longest time that Advin had his shit together. I thought that he goes to the gym all the time, or he's going to university and he's got a podcast. I don't know. He struggled with shame, guilt, and the feeling of inadequacy. And while it's not like that all the time, there are bouts of that, and it's powerful, and it's to recognize that and let people in. It makes us more human. And
I actually think it reveals the refinement of being a human. I'm sorry, I watched a documentary and the other day it showed a gorilla mother taking care of her baby who had fallen over some sort of log and bumped its head and was doing that thing that toddlers do, which is they freak out and they're like, oh my God, I hit myself. And there's that moment they're just kind of stunned, and then they start to cry, right? And she did exactly the same thing that every mother does. She went over and touched his head and held him and checked the spot, and he cried and she held him, and it was like, wow, this ability to care for each other. We all live in the school of hard knocks. We're all going to have something that's going to harm us. We're all going to get hurt. I mean, the messengers that the Buddha, before he was the Buddha, was given was, we're all going to age. We're all going to get sick someday. We're all going to be separated from those that we love somehow, in some way, and we're all going to die. All of us, no matter how amazing you look, Advent, no matter how good I look in this sweater, but we also, the fifth messenger was, our karma, our actions, which have consequences, are actually our inheritance. So what do each one of us do in that world where we will age and get sick and be separated from those that we love and die? Our legacy is really how we take care of each other.
you are not going to be remembered by how fast your car goes or how nice and expensive your house is. You're not going to be remembered by the prestige and all the people that you're better at than. It's how did Allison present herself in the world? Did she listen? Were they there for me? Were they kind? And when I was struggling with certain ailments, were they too busy, or did they give me their full effort? Did they show up? And while I talk about that, we live in a society where, sure, that is greatly emphasized, and a lot of people do turn the other cheek, and a lot of people do prioritize kindness, and they want to give. It's certainly not the norm, you know.
Well, taking care of each other, and I termed it that way.
Mhm.
Sometimes taking care is being kind and making space. Sometimes it's wake up. You're more than you think you are.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes it's a little slap.
It's tough love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to do that today with somebody much older than me, where I had to be like, stop. Come on, refocus. And they were like, and I'm like, so how we take care of each other, and we'll all have different styles. I moved back to Edmonton. I lived for many years, so New York, London, Toronto. Then I was 21 years actually in Montreal, where I had a yoga studio. And I moved back to Edmonton 2 years ago to help my parents with their end of life. Both of them passed. I was under no illusion that me coming back would stop that. But I do walk around the city, and sometimes I'll meet somebody and they'll go, Ulan? I'm like, yeah. Did you know my father or my uncle, who were both doctors in this city? And they'll go, Orest Ulan? I'm like, yeah, my dad. So I'm going to start crying. They go, kindest man. You know? And they'll usually cry in front of me.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm sure your father's touched many hearts.
He's just a lovely person. Not because he was nice all the time. He also did teach at the university. He taught people how to be doctors in residency. And many people at the funeral said, tough professor. He did not let us skate by. He was like, he'd call us on our stuff, you know. Patient said, incredibly patient, incredibly kind. I do remember many times in the morning before school, driving with him to a house where he would do a house call, and then he'd take us to school. So, many times, or going to the neonatal unit and sitting and waiting for him while he checked on somebody. So, caring for each other doesn't always mean we're nice to each other. Sometimes we have to be that mentor that says, come on, stand up to that thing in yourself. And sometimes it's, no, soften. And I really love what you brought up about that person, about agency and gratitude. Because the mentors in our lives will demonstrate the agency we can have with ourselves at different times. One of my key mentors was David Adams. He was the Mr. in the Mr. and Mrs. of the National Ballet Company. He was the first principal male dancer of that company. And then he moved here in the 80s to teach ballet. He was involved with the Alberta Ballet Company, the Grant McEwen School, and I met him at the Edmonton Ballet School when I was a teenager. And he was the key person, my mentor, who said, you know what? You're more than you think you are, Allison. He put me in dance numbers that I remember other people went, Allison, she's going to get that. He went, yep. And he was the one who got me to New York City. He said, go do it.
He saw the potential in you.
Yeah. And I think we all need our mentors, and if there is somebody who resonates for you, you might be surprised how much they resonate with you too, that they're naturally a mentor.
Yeah. There seems to be a push right now to select your mentor, right? Oh, go and make sure that that person seems like they have their life together. Go and seek that person out. But what I've noticed is the true mentors that are robust and that actually align with who you are the ones that you don't ask to be your mentor. They're kind of just the people that are the coaches in your life, the uncles, aunts, and they just speak to you in a way where it's rejuvenating, and they see something in you that you don't see in yourself, and then you go back to them to be reminded of what it means to be you, because they see more of what you see in yourself. And I see that with I worked for this sign company, and there was this woman, and she had never gone to post-secondary, and she's raised two sons, and yeah, she didn't necessarily really give me advice. She just let me speak my mind and just listen to me, and it's like she treated me like her son. And it motivated me to go beyond than what I thought I knew was capable just by this interaction, right? And I still see her to this day. And yeah, no, her name's Kim. And actually, I make the effort to see her here and there, check in. We're Facebook friends. Yeah. So the beauty of mentorship is it's just they recognize just how tough life can be, and by recognizing that potential in you and already being in the later stages in life and already going through the mistakes, they can just tell you, hey, don't do that, do this instead, and they'll do stuff for you. And it's just, I find that there's all these different people that we come across with that just carry a piece of the puzzle.
And when you think about her, how does it feel in your body?
I feel loved. I know with a lot of people, unconditional love seems like it's from a different dimension. But yeah, it's rare, but it is possible to have someone just like you for who you are, or love you for who you are. And actually, there's this author, her name's Brené Brown, and she's an expert on vulnerability, and she's on a journey to get it out to people as much as possible, to be you and to be vulnerable and to accept the flaws. And she talks about going to an event and having people like you, but you're not being yourself. You're just kind of accommodating what they expect. And sure, they may like you, but you may feel good leaving that party, but there's that disconnect with the disalignment with who you are and how you present to other people. And that's where loneliness stems from. But if you go to that party, that event, and you're yourself, even if they don't like you, but chances are they probably will, because authenticity really just, it opens you up to people that are right for you. And if those people don't like you, then you can just find another group. But when you find the people that accept you for who you are, the funny laugh or the jokes, the type of humor, or just the voice, and you realize that, oh, all the insecurities, all the flaws that I do have, it's not that big of a deal because there's this person or the group that likes me for who I am. And yeah, that's a great lesson I've been trying to reinforce. It's easier said than done. But yeah, I've just been trying to leverage that.
Well, I think I've been wondering what's going on in the mindfulness, self-help, psychological well-being world. We can have a lot of opinions about it. Okay. Some people say, oh, it's just for people with money. Other people go, no, this is actually really essential. And I do believe in all of these things that we try and help ourselves navigate a life. It depends on who offers us these things. Okay. But on a bigger scale, what's this all about? And I think it's that we're recreating village experience again, that we live in 30 to 100 people that know us, and not everybody has to be the same. But in that amount of people, we can be seen and heard and connected with. We can be an individual with all of our foibles, right? My major thing that I've had to overcome, which I'm overcoming every single day, is self-doubt. I have so much self-doubt. I just put up videos on YouTube the last couple weeks, and I've held on to these videos since 2021. Put them up, and tons of people are like, wow, these are great. Thank you, Allison. I went, what was my inner critic getting in the way? So fragility, acknowledging our addictions, not being perfect, having a pimple. I was kind of hoping I'd have a pimple,
Yeah.
but I don't, darn it. Or not having the perfect conversation with somebody each day. We go, I could have done that better. That's in a village. We can do that more. We're moving back to Edmonton 2 years ago. I was kind of shocked how nobody really looks at each other. Everybody's nice and courteous, except when they're in a car. But but nobody really looks at each other. And I was like, oh, what's going on? What's going on? But, living a mindful life, living a satisfied life, a meaningful life, which I think is really what your channel and podcast is about. Like the search for living a meaningful life.
Yes.
Which is great. I don't think we can do it alone.
No, it's there's no such thing as a self-made person. No matter how you define your life and the successes and the happiness, you cannot do it alone. That's just in our biology. It's from time and time again throughout history, people that have gone to the top of philanthropy or like wealth and compassion, even, they could not have gotten to that point without the nurturing mother or the tough love of the father and that mentor from when you were working at McDonald's, or that teacher that just spoke to you, that brought you out of your shyness, or that friend that was there for you. And even
the people, staff that are with them there, putting up with maybe weird moods or whatever, right?
Even the people that were assholes, like they taught you that, oh, this does not make a person feel good. And you can either take that as, oh, that pain inflicted on me, I want to inflict it back, or you could go, oh, that person's going through something and look how it made me feel. I don't want other people to feel that way. And the Donald Miller has this saying of like the hero and the villain, they both experience the same thing, kind of the same kind of background of horror and terror and just unfortunate events. But the hero goes, I experienced that pain. I don't want the world to experience it. But the villain goes, I experienced that pain. I'm going to give it back to the world and I'm going to make them feel. And I'm a big advocate for free will. That you do have a choice with every single day that is brought forward. And
let's finish on one thing. This quote is by Viktor Frankl, and it's exactly that free will.
I love Viktor Frankl.
Where is it?
I love Viktor Frankl so much, actually.
It's a nice short one, but this is the essence of what you're doing, what we're all doing when we do our form of yoga, whatever that might be, or meditation, whatever that thing is that centers us. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom.
Yeah. He is such an inspiring individual. And have you read his book, A Man's Search for Meaning?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was incredible. Everything could be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given circumstance, to choose one's way. And from people that have lost, that has been stripped of everything, he goes to talk about the people that would give up the eighth of bread that they're rationed every single day to others that need it more.
Yeah. And
there are people that take from people. And in this pressure, under immense pressure of just life taking everything away from you, he makes the distinction of you can either turn into a swine or a saint. And I would like to be the saint, but it's just, you can't fault people for the choices that.
And the other thing is, you can't rehearse what you're going to do in a situation.
No, you'd like to.
You can only be with your experience, each one of us with our own experience, understand our internal world, and then every single person we meet, we're actually in that circumstance.
Yeah.
Are we going to be a swine or a saint?
Yeah.
And I would say there's a lot more dharmic roles. I mean, the archetypes, right? We could go into Joseph Campbell's archetypes. But play your Dungeons and Dragons, right? It's all about being in circumstances, seeing the resources that we have. But the greatest inner resource is our ability to pause and consider our response. Even that pause is the power of our agency.
Yeah. Where did we? Viktor Frankl.
Viktor Frankl, swine and saint.
Yeah, you mentioned that we all have it in us to be a swine or a saint. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think we can be swinely saints and saintly swines.
Yeah.
We're not rehearsing for life. Life is right now. Okay? And depending what's ruminating in our mind space, and if we can actually recognize, hey, what's stirring in my mind space, that's going to direct our actions and our attitudes. So if we're insecure, we need more whatever. More money, more prestige, more love, more recognition, more whatever, we'll become a swine.
What's that bottomless pit? And money is in there, fame, success.
But it's what Brene Brown talks about, which is the sense of not being enough.
Yeah.
Because if we don't have a sense that these however many cells in this nervous system and this experience that I've interpreted through me isn't enough, we're going to always be asking the outside to feed us constantly. So swine is, I mean, I get his term, but I would say more that we turn into hungry ghosts, which in the tradition of Buddhism have really long spoons and they're very tiny. And we have tiny mouths and tiny throats, but we have these big gullets, these big stomachs that we're constantly feeding ourselves, right? Because we feel like we're not enough. A saint, that's a big archetype to live up to.
Yeah.
I do think maybe the opposite of a hungry ghost would be, some sort of fleshy, embodied. What's a creature on earth? I turn to an elephant. I find elephants quite amazing. But an embodied creature that remembers and knows their worth.
Yeah. But it's establishing that contentment and being comfortable in your own skin. Because I've found that there are certain periods within the year, especially around summer, where I can just get through anything. I'm not sure, maybe it's the weather, maybe it's because school's done and I can just focus onto working out and being friends with, cultivating friendships and deepening them. There's just times where I can turn the other cheek and I have no resentments in my heart. But then around September, October, I feel jaded for whatever reason. And I know it's only temporary, in that if I follow the path of most resistance, if I just continue to be kind despite the ambient feeling of the pressures of life, then when life is on easy mode, I'm better able to present myself in a kind way, because on the days where it was brutal, where I felt jaded, I was still able to treat people with kindness. And that's...
But you have a lot of self-control.
Yeah, but not...
You know that, right?
It's not to the extent of suppressing my emotions too. Of course, I'm going to tell my friends what I'm truly feeling. But I'm not just going to be a sob, a puddle of tears on the floor. I also want to be able to do my work and go about the world with agency and gratitude, despite the lingering thoughts of doubts, of guilt, of the wishing that my life was 5 years back so I could change everything, or just being in another state. If I hadn't made that decision, then I wouldn't be in this situation. But going, okay, that has happened. What can I do to prevent that? Or what can I do to be able to accept that that's happened and give back to the world in a positive way? And usually thinking about death, where after how will I be remembered, and going about the world with a generative drive and just having the one-on-one talks of vulnerability and just being myself usually is the antidote to those negative thoughts. But they're not a one-stop solution. It's continuous.
No. Yeah, we're
effort.
constantly in a relationship with ourselves in changing circumstances, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it'd be great if we did that one lesson and it
And
fixed the rest of
everything's
our
solved.
future. But the reality is, I mean, I could tell you so many things in my life that fell apart, or I didn't take the opportunity to jump on that thing because of self-doubt. I'm 56. What I realize now at the age of 56, if that thing is still lingering in me, I'm still going to jump on it now. That's why I'm doing my master's. I regret years ago in Toronto, I went to a performance, and one of my friends that I had met in London, England at the place was performing. And I went, wow. And this was in the 90s. And I was like, and I was feeling like a complete failure in Toronto. I did not have the adult perspective of how competitive it was. Okay. I blamed myself. The person sitting beside me, this nice man, middle-aged man, was like, oh, what is it? I was like, oh, I know somebody who's performing. He goes, I'm going to the gala afterwards. Will come with me. So she comes in the room, probably a 30-foot room, 40 feet. She saw me right away and was like, Allison, came over. She right away was like, okay, the choreographer has to meet you. You have to meet him. She takes me over. He's having an interview with a dance critic in the city at the time. This dance critic literally looks at me and then looks at him going, oh, Allison, she's nobody. I'm sitting there going, okay, another like bullet hole in my mind and heart that I'm nothing. This choreographer, extremely nice, just went, oh, thank you. And can you just one moment, takes me to the side and goes, sits me down, says, if my dancer, Sarah, in this company says you're worth something, you are. I apologize for what that woman did. Can you wait? I'm sorry, I have to do that interview. I was like, no problem. Went back, finished the interview, came back to me, gave me his card. We talked a little bit. He said, can you send me a video? Can you send me something? And I look forward to it. I never did. I was in such a circumstance in my life. I didn't have the resources to get a video together. And I didn't have the self-confidence and the community yet in Toronto to ask people to help me. I found that card he gave me the other day.
This week? Yeah.
Just like, I think it was last week or the week before. I went, guess what? I'm going to get in touch with this guy. Because I am now teaching contemporary dance and ballet in the city, along with teaching my yoga and mindfulness. I was like, there's something unfinished, but I'm not the person I was 25 years ago or 30 years ago. I'm somebody different. I was like, time to call that person and send him a video. So this is the other thing is, I think in youth, we think we have to jump on those opportunities right away. And yeah, there are some opportunities that are just right away. And then I think there's things that linger in us that we go, you know what? I'm ready now. I'm ready. So this thing of our meaning of life, it's not just something we choose. It's not like a career or a job choice. It's also something we grow into. And we start to realize, oh, that's my vocation. That's my dharma. That's really why I'm here. Some people's dharma has nothing to do with a job. It's how they are in their neighborhood or their family. It's like that woman, Kim, who lives deep in you, your mentor. She's wise and compassionate. No university degree can do that for us.
Yeah.
But we can cultivate that in our lives.
It's showing up for that friend. It's showing that encouragement for that aunt or your mom or sibling that's going through a tough time. It's just showing up sometimes, not saying anything. It's asking the store employee how their day was goes a long way.
Yeah.
You know?
And they may be like, oh, nice. Or they may like be totally irritated. I have to get my work done. The key is caring.
Yeah. Presenting yourself in the world.
And do you have a state of mind that can be in the perspective of caring? And it's okay. Some days we have so many stressors and so many things on our list that we realize, actually, I can't be around other people today very well.
Yeah.
That's just us. And then there's other days where you're like, yeah, you know what? I have more space in me. I have perspective.
A majority of my listeners, just my friends and some family members, mostly in our 20s, 30s, what would you advise us to do to establish a life worth living? Because I feel in this day and age, a lot of us feel lost. A lot of us don't know what we're doing, flip-flopping between programs, or even when we're almost done the program, feeling like it's not the right thing for us because there's so many opportunities out there. There's so many self-help practices. You can travel everywhere now. You can, houses, can we even afford anything? Like what would you advise to the next generation?
I mean, it's advice. Because, that's the other thing. We're all different. We all have different skills and abilities. The key is knowing your 20s and 30s, you're coming into being. Take your time. I know I was like, you have to have the career, and if you don't have it by age 30 and this and that, even by 25, you're a failure. So not true. So not true. I've seen people really come into who they are in their 40s and 50s. I didn't actually own a home until I was 43. It was, a condo, small, and my father helped me with some of the down payment and all of that. Also live lighter. See how you don't have to live an expensive lifestyle to have a meaningful lifestyle.
Yeah, living below your means.
Yeah,
can go a long way.
Yeah, it really can, because so much of people's psychological anxiety is connected to financial insecurity. Okay. Do not let your current employment define you. Do not let your current employment define you. You are so much more. But also, some of the most amazing, wise, compassionate people I've met have been bookstore managers and work at Costco and do a plethora of so many different jobs. So I also strongly advise, do you live in a culture that has that depth of wisdom not to define you by your job?
Yeah.
Usually older cultures do. I've traveled to India 9 times. Sorry, I went to do that, to study with my teacher, Shri K. Patabi Joyce. And it was so amazing to be in a 5,000-year-old culture where everybody was like circumstance, status, up and down. But that doesn't mean you're not important. And I met so many incredible people who made little money, but they were a source of solace for their community. And it changed coming back to Europe and North America, going, wow, we're so harsh to each other.
Yeah.
So create community. Create community beyond what you can buy and consume. Do things together. Find out each other's dreams, no matter how crazy they are. I know my dream here in here in Edmonton is to create a safe, neutral space for dance and exploration, so that people feel safe wherever they're creating. They don't feel like their artistic and intellectual property will be stolen from them. So you don't have to be defined in your 20s and 30s.
Thank you so much for coming on the long-term podcast.
I think this stuff is great.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
amazing.
Likewise.
And keep making community.
I'm trying.
and I do really feel that's really the last 20 years of all these, self-help or self-inquiry books and research is really, how do we move from the nuclear family that we were all fed in the 50s and 60s back to the dynamic village?
Yeah, it's creating that tribe.
Yeah.
You feel like yourself and everybody around you supports you and you support them and they also feel like themselves. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much. It's so incredible being able to hear your story, and yeah, there's still so much more wisdom I want to extract. Yeah, but yeah, I'm thankful for the conversation, and yeah, hopefully we could do this again.
Yes, and I'm thankful that you're doing a podcast like this with these in-depth conversations. I mean,
yeah, I like the long
wow.
form. Yeah, and yeah, as always, to everyone listening and watching, there is a place for you in this chaotic world. Never lose hope, strengthen your faith, and keep it long term. Allison, Ulan, everyone.
Thank you. I hope to meet you, whoever you are out there.